Something big just happened in the truck world. And no, it didn't come from Detroit or Silicon Valley. It came from China. The BYD Shark 6 has just launched, and instead of starting in China, it's making its debut in Mexico. That move alone should make Ford, GM, and even Tesla pay attention. Pickup trucks are the crown jewels of the American auto industry. The Ford F-150, Chevy Silverado, and Ram 1500 aren't just vehicles, they're billion-dollar profit machines that keep Detroit alive. Year after year, they top the charts. But for the first time in decades, a foreign EV challenger has dared to step into this sacred arena. And that challenger isn't easing in, it's coming in aggressive. BYD isn't a small name anymore. They're the largest EV maker on the planet, outselling Tesla in global deliveries. They dominate China, they're expanding in Europe, and now they're using Mexico as a launch pad for North America. But Mexico is just the beginning. The Shark 6 is also rolling out in the Philippines, Australia, Brazil, and South Africa. These aren't random markets, they're strategic gateways into bigger regions. BYD is building a global shark tank. Here's why it matters. If BYD proves the Shark 6 works in Mexico and beyond, it could become the first real threat to America's truck dominance. Imagine walking into a dealership and seeing a truck with the size, power, and tech of a Ford Lightning, except for tens of thousands less. That's not just competition, that's disruption. And in this video, we're going to break down everything you need to know. We'll look at the Shark 6's features and technology. We'll dive into its price strategy and rollout plan. We'll explore the global impact on automakers, oil companies, and even politics. And finally, we'll talk about why the world should care about this one truck. The first thing you notice about the BYD Shark 6 is the design. This isn't some quirky electric prototype that looks like a toy from the future. It looks like a truck, a real truck. Wide stance, muscular front, big bed, rugged lines. In other words, it looks like something you'd park next to an F-150 or Silverado and not feel embarrassed about. That's intentional. BYD knows trucks are symbols of power, independence, and toughness, and they designed the Shark 6 to send exactly that message. But the outside is just the start. The real story is under the skin. The Shark 6 is built on BYD's hybrid DMI platform, and that gives it flexibility. It can run as a pure electric truck for city driving with up to 62 miles of EV-only range. But when you need to go long, the gas engine kicks in and extends the range to well over 500 miles. That combination eliminates the #1 fear truck buyers still have about EVs, running out of juice on the open road. Now, let's talk numbers. The Shark 6 delivers 430 horsepower with a dual motor setup, putting power to all four wheels. 0 to 60? Under 6 seconds. That's faster than most traditional trucks, and it does it while towing up to 5,500 pounds. Is that enough to replace a heavy-duty workhorse like an F-250? No. But is it enough for the millions of people who use their trucks for daily driving, weekend adventures, and mid-level hauling? Absolutely. And here's the kicker. BYD is using its Blade battery technology, the same one that's made headlines around the world for its safety and durability. Unlike lithium batteries that can catch fire under extreme conditions, Blade batteries are designed to withstand punctures, heat, and even crushing without igniting. For truck buyers, that's peace of mind. Nobody wants to imagine their truck bursting into flames while towing a trailer or sitting in the driveway. BYD knows that fear, and they've engineered around it. Inside the Shark 6, BYD is throwing punches at Tesla and Ford. There's a 12.8-inch rotating touchscreen, voice controls, and over-the-air software updates. But more importantly, they've built a cabin that feels comfortable and premium without being flashy. Think wide seats, rugged materials, and just enough tech to make life easy without overwhelming you. BYD understands something Tesla sometimes misses. Truck buyers don't want a spaceship. They want a truck that works hard, looks good, and doesn't confuse them with endless menus and gimmicks. But here's the detail that should really scare Detroit. The Shark 6 comes with bi-directional charging. That means the truck itself can power your tools, your campsite, or even your house during a blackout. Ford made headlines when it introduced this with the F-150 Lightning. Now BYD is doing it too, and at a much lower price point. Imagine a contractor in Mexico plugging in power tools at a job site straight from his truck, or a family in Australia keeping the lights on during a storm thanks to the Shark 6's battery. That's not just a feature. That's life-changing utility, and BYD isn't stopping there. They're loading the Shark 6 with advanced driver assist systems, adaptive cruise, lane keeping, blind spot monitoring, automatic emergency braking. Features that American truck buyers are used to seeing only on high-end trims of Fords and Chevys are coming standard or near standard on the Shark 6. That's BYD's strategy. Give more for less. Force the competition to play catch-up. Let's pause here, because what we're seeing with the Shark 6 isn't just another EV. It's proof that BYD has figured out how to merge practicality, performance, and price. They've taken the things truck buyers care about: power, range, safety, utility, and delivered them in one package. And they've wrapped it in a design that doesn't scream weird EV experiment. It screams, I'm a truck, drive me. The Shark 6 isn't crawling into the market. It's not waiting years for factories to be built or supply chains to catch up. BYD is rolling this truck out at a speed that will make Detroit dizzy, while American automakers are still delaying EV launches, cutting production targets, and begging for subsidies. BYD is doing the exact opposite. They're moving fast, and they're moving everywhere. The first shock is Mexico. BYD didn't pick it by accident. Mexico is more than just a neighbor to the US. It's one of the largest automotive hubs in the world. Ford, GM, Stellantis, and countless suppliers already build there. So when BYD launched the Shark 6 in Mexico, they weren't just testing a new market, they were planting a flag in Detroit's backyard. If the Shark 6 succeeds there, it sends a message: the fortress of North America is no longer safe. But Mexico is just one piece of the puzzle. In the same breath, BYD is launching the Shark 6 in the Philippines, Australia, Brazil, and South Africa. Think about the geography for a moment. Southeast Asia, Oceania, Latin America, and Africa all covered. That's not random, that's chess. BYD is surrounding the globe with strategic entry points before Ford and GM even realize the game has changed. The Philippines makes sense. It's a nation where affordable EVs are desperately needed, and where BYD already has a growing presence. Trucks there aren't just toys, they're family haulers, cargo carriers, and daily workhorses. An affordable EV truck instantly plugs into that need. Australia is even bolder. It's one of the toughest truck markets on the planet. The Toyota Hilux and Ford Ranger dominate because Aussies need trucks that can handle rough terrain, long distances, and brutal weather. If the Shark 6 can win in Australia, it proves to the world that BYD isn't just making cheap city EVs, it's building machines that can handle the outback. Brazil is the crown jewel of Latin America. It's the region's biggest auto market and a playground for global automakers. If the Shark 6 gains traction there, BYD can ride the momentum into Argentina, Chile, and the rest of South America. And let's not forget, Brazil has one of the highest fuel costs in the world. Offering a cheaper-to-run EV truck is a direct strike at gas dependency. South Africa tells another story. It's the entry point to Africa's growing middle class. While Africa's EV adoption is still low, South Africa is the test market. If BYD succeeds there, it can expand north as infrastructure catches up. And let's be clear, whoever moves first in Africa will have a decade-long advantage. Now, here's what really stings for American automakers. While Ford Lightning production has been slowed, while Cybertruck deliveries are still trickling out, BYD is scaling up faster than anyone else. They're not just building cars, they're building factories on multiple continents. In the past year alone, BYD announced plants in Thailand, Hungary, and Brazil. That means when they decide to flood a region with vehicles, they already have the supply chain to back it up. This rollout speed is a weapon, because every year Ford or GM delays, BYD captures another market. Every quarter Tesla struggles with scaling Cybertruck, BYD launches in a new country. And it's not just about sales, it's about perception. Once people see Shark 6s on the roads in Mexico, Australia, and Brazil, they stop thinking of BYD as a Chinese company. They start thinking of it as a global brand, and that's when the momentum becomes unstoppable. The Shark 6 rollout proves one thing clearly: the EV race isn't waiting for Detroit. The rest of the world is moving, and BYD is leading that charge. So how is BYD pulling this off? How can they build a truck like the Shark 6, launch it across multiple continents, and still sell it at a price that makes Ford and GM look overpriced? The answer is simple. BYD has rewritten the playbook of car manufacturing. Let's start with the most important piece: vertical integration. Most car makers buy their batteries from suppliers. Ford relies on CATL, GM relies on LG, Tesla works with Panasonic and others. But BYD doesn't have that problem. They make their own batteries. In fact, they don't just make them, they make some of the safest and most advanced batteries in the world. The Blade battery is built in BYD's own factories, with their own supply chains, using materials they've locked down years ahead of the competition. That alone cuts costs by thousands of dollars per vehicle. And it doesn't stop there. BYD also builds its own chips, its own motors, its own power electronics. Where other automakers are dependent on outside suppliers, BYD is self-sufficient. That means they don't get caught in the same delays and price hikes that crippled Detroit during the supply chain crisis. Remember when American factories shut down because they couldn't get enough semiconductors? BYD kept building because they controlled the pipeline from start to finish. But vertical integration is only half the story. The other half is scale. BYD isn't making a few 100,000 cars per year. They're making millions. In 2023 alone, they sold over 3 million vehicles. That kind of scale drives costs down in a way that Ford and GM can't match. It's the Walmart effect. When you produce at massive volume, you can squeeze suppliers, streamline logistics, and cut per unit costs until your competitors can't keep up. BYD has also mastered the art of localized production. Instead of shipping cars halfway across the world, they're building factories where the buyers are. They have plants in China, of course, but now they're adding facilities in Thailand, Hungary, and Brazil, and more are coming. That means when they sell a Shark 6 in South America, it may have been built right there in Brazil. lower shipping costs, faster deliveries, and political goodwill from creating local jobs. It's a triple win. Compare that to the US automakers. Ford has been begging Washington for subsidies to keep its EV plants alive. GM has delayed EV rollouts because they simply can't scale production. Tesla is ahead of most Americans, but even they are struggling with the complexity of Cybertruck production. Meanwhile, BYD is quietly building an empire of factories, each one ready to feed its region with EVs at lightning speed. And let's not forget costs on the consumer side. BYD doesn't load its vehicles with overpriced luxury gimmicks that drive up the sticker price. They focus on practicality, strong range, rugged design, features that matter. They don't need $15,000 software packages or $20,000 premium trim upsells to stay profitable. They make money at lower prices because their entire structure is built for efficiency. This is the real revolution. BYD is proving that building an EV doesn't have to cost $50,000. It doesn't have to take years of delays and billions in subsidies. It can be done quickly, affordably, and at scale if you control the process from end to end. Now, imagine what happens when this model spreads. Imagine BYD building a factory in Mexico, feeding both Latin America and potentially the US market. Imagine a Shark 6 being sold in Brazil for half the price of a Silverado. Imagine Africa skipping straight to EV trucks without decades of gas infrastructure investment. That's the world BYD is engineering right now. And here's the hard truth for Detroit: they can't catch up easily. You can't suddenly decide to build your own batteries after relying on suppliers for decades. You can't snap your fingers and match BYD's scale without years of investment. You can't turn into a vertically integrated company overnight. BYD has spent decades laying this groundwork, and now they're cashing in. This is why the Shark 6 is more than just another truck. It's a symbol of a manufacturing revolution. A revolution that proves the future of autos won't be decided in Detroit or even Silicon Valley. It's being decided in Shenzhen, in Mexico, in Brazil, and the ripple effects will touch every corner of the globe. At first glance, the BYD Shark 6 might look like just another truck, a new competitor in a crowded market. But if you zoom out, you realize this isn't just a vehicle launch. It's a moment that could change industries, economies, and even politics around the world. The stakes are far bigger than Detroit versus Shenzhen. They touch every driver, every household, every government. Let's start with the auto industry itself. Trucks aren't just popular in North America, they're cultural icons. They symbolize strength, freedom, and reliability. If BYD can break into that market, it proves something bigger: that no segment is safe. For decades, Detroit has told itself, sure, Toyota and Honda can take over sedans, but trucks, that's ours forever. The Shark 6 destroys that illusion. It tells the world that even the most American vehicle of all, the pickup, can be challenged and possibly beaten by an outsider. And once the fortress falls, the floodgates open. If Americans see Mexican contractors driving Shark 6s for half the cost of a Ford Lightning, the pressure on US automakers will be unbearable. Either they cut prices or they lose share. Either they speed up innovation or they get left behind. For consumers, that's good news. It means lower prices and better trucks. But for Ford, GM, and even Tesla, it's an existential threat. Now, let's talk energy. EV trucks like the Shark 6 don't just replace gas with electricity. They change how energy flows. Remember the bidirectional charging? A truck like this can act as a battery on wheels. In countries with unstable grids, that's a game changer. In Brazil, where blackouts are common, a Shark 6 could keep a home running. In South Africa, plagued by load shedding, it could mean lights stay on when the power goes off. That shifts the balance of power, literally, from oil companies and utilities to individuals and their vehicles. Geopolitics. The Shark 6 is already part of that story. By launching in Mexico, BYD isn't just selling cars. They're positioning themselves inside North America's trade zone. That means they could potentially export trucks into the US with favorable tariffs. Imagine the political fallout if a $35,000 BYD truck is sitting next to an $80,000 Lightning on US soil. Lawmakers will face a choice: protect Detroit with tariffs, or let consumers enjoy cheaper EVs. Either way, it sparks debate that goes beyond cars. It touches trade, jobs, and national identity. Globally, the Shark 6 also accelerates the EV tipping point. For years, EVs were seen as luxury toys: Teslas in California, BMWs in Europe. But a rugged, affordable truck in Mexico, Brazil, and South Africa sends a different message. It says EVs aren't just for the rich. They're for workers, families, and small businesses. That narrative shift could push governments to invest harder in charging networks, force oil companies to rethink demand, and inspire other automakers to finally get serious about electrification. And here's the emotional layer. For decades, the truck has been a symbol of pride for millions of families, handed down from father to son, parked in driveways as a sign of stability and success. If the Shark 6 becomes the new family truck, not a Ford, not a Chevy, but a BYD, that's more than a market shift. That's a cultural earthquake. It redefines what people see as their truck, their brand, their tradition. And once that cultural shift begins, it doesn't stop. So why should the world care? Because the Shark 6 is not just a product, it's a signal that the center of gravity in the auto industry has shifted, a signal that the next decade won't be written in Detroit or Stuttgart, but in Shenzhen, São Paulo, and Johannesburg. A signal that the old rules no longer apply. The Shark 6 is more than metal, batteries, and wheels. It's a test of how fast disruption can spread when one company gets the formula right. If it succeeds, it could accelerate the EV transition by years. If it fails, it will still force Detroit to rethink its strategy. Either way, the world won't look at trucks or at China the same way again, so buckle up. Because whether you're in the US, Mexico, Brazil, or South Africa, the Shark 6 isn't just coming. It's coming for the future itself. We appreciate you being here. Don't forget to join us again soon, because the story of the future is just getting started.